Well, let's start. I see that we have quite a number of participants already, and we know that all the others will join slowly but surely. So welcome. It's a pleasure to welcome you to this program of the networking channel. As you know, some politicians usually they claim that what matters is the vision. Others, and including industry stakeholders, they will say that what is of utmost importance is the path to get there, to the vision. Today we are lucky because we are going to address both. SDGs as the visions and the program that are planned in Europe and in the US to get there. So I'm very pleased that we can share this program with you. Before I hand over to Didier, I would like to remind to the audience that, of course, the program is recorded. It will be available then on the Empower YouTube networking channel, YouTube channel. We will also make the slides available to you on the website. And in case you would like to continue the discussion offline, then you can access the Slack channel that we have together with the ACM sitcom, and all this information will be put on the chat so that you can have access to them. I would like to remind you as well that you can ask questions at any time. For this, the best way is to use the Q&A rather than the chat, and then Didier, as the chair, will manage the questions and hopefully will be able to address most of them. So, this being said, really, I would like to thank Didier Bourse from Nokia, Senior Director. He has been really instrumental in orchestrating this program. And again, thanks to the panelists, and Didier, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Serge. Very good. So welcome to all of you. Thanks for joining. Good morning, good afternoon, depending where you stand. So I'm very delighted. So you should see, I think, full screen now. Can you see the screen? It's okay? Yeah. Excellent. So thanks a lot. I'm very delighted to welcome for this 6G EU and US program webinar, very prestigious and known panelists. So we will address during this webinar both perspectives from both sides of the Atlantic. So we will have Colin Willcock, we will have for the European perspective and addressing the smart networks and services. We will have Mike Nawrocki from US perspective addressing NextG Alliance. We will have Alexandros Kaloxylos who will then provide details also on the technical perspective from European side, and Alex Sprintson will bring perspective from Rings and from the US side. So there will be, as Serge mentioned it, both the vision about 6G and let's say the implementation and discussion about the program that are running and the different also projects that are running under this program. So the proposal is this one. After this brief introduction, we will have during 25 minutes both Colin and Mike addressing the two program perspective, and then during 15 minutes we are planning to go more into technical details and address specific project perspective and also roadmap and technical challenges perspective. We want to leave time as usual during the webinar for audience and to raise Q&A, and as you know, there is possibility to follow up through the Slack channel at the end. So it's also great because this is the last networking channel webinar for let's say this period. There will be let's say a break just after this webinar, and then the networking challenge channel will restart after the summer break. So one last point before I leave the floor to Colin and Mike from my side. So I am involved intensely in the European program and project both on 5G and now on 6G, and also actively engage in the definition, let's say, for the implementation of this future program. So I propose that we start now with Colin. So I will stop sharing from my side, and Colin, the floor is yours, and after Mike to let's say take also the hand. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for that introduction, Didier. Let me see if I can actually share my slides. That might be a good start. Is that working?
Excellent.
Ah, well, that's half the presentation done. That's wonderful. Welcome everyone. Yes, my name's Colin Willcock, and to introduce who I am, I guess I first need to talk about the 6G Industry Association, which is an association which tries to be the voice of European industry on all things to do with 5G and 6G. And I am lucky enough to be the chairman of the board of this organization. And the organization, when it talks about European industry, is not just limited to the big players, the Nokia, the Ericsson. It also has SMEs and academics and research institutes, and indeed verticals. So we have the whole sort of ecosystem in our association, and indeed it includes key players from across the globe. So people like Apple and Docomo and people like that. So we have a large community within the association, and within that group we also have things like working parties or working groups that look at specific aspects like vision, like spectrum, in a similar way to as we will see shortly with the NextG Alliance. In addition to that, shall we say, creation of opinion and lobbying work, we also actually jointly run a lot of the European research in the areas of 5G and 6G. So we have run and are still running something called 5G PPP, which was for 8 years a large research program that developed many concepts that we now see in the 5G standards. And what I want to talk to today, in the small amount of time I have available, is the next step, the so-called smart networks and services. So this is a new research program in Europe. We are starting that the end of last year. We've had the first call and the first project proposals have been submitted now. And this will be running for the next 7 or 8 years, trying to drive 6G research. Now, the basis of this research is collaborative research projects. So the program will have a series of calls, and each call will have a number. So in the first call, it was, we're looking for somewhere around 35, 36 projects. And these projects will be made up from many partners. And those partners will be SMEs, academics, research institute, big industry, associations, individuals, anyone you care to mention. And they all work together then in a collaborative way, trying to develop this 6G technology. And this model is necessary because 6G needs to be a global standard. That's our true belief. And to do that, we can't just look inwards and have a small group. We need a large group encompassing many of the key organizations and groups around the world. And that's what we have within Smart Networks and Services. So what are we actually trying to achieve with this program? Well, clearly we want to create or generate research and innovation for 6G networks. But we wish to do things in a broader sense than perhaps we've done in the past. So we're not necessarily concentrating just on the radio access network. We were also looking at the devices and indeed the service infrastructure. So trying to have a much more end-to-end view. And equally, we want to try and look at those new application areas. There's some examples here where we feel that they will be key in driving this 6G technology. Now, today, this session is very much about 6G research in Europe and US. But I think we need to perhaps start by making the point that 6G is the future, but it's not now. So the technology which is being deployed today is 5G. And indeed, the evolution of 5G, 5G Advanced, will be the key technology for the next 5 to 8 years. So when we're talking about 6G, we're talking about technology that we're intending to deploy 2030 or beyond. So now is the right time to be doing fundamental research for that, but now is not the time for thinking that we need to deploy that anytime soon. In addition to the system, end-to-end system, the devices, the applications, clearly there is an aspect in the smart network and services which is trying to keep that European technology leadership in this area. It's not saying that we are the only leaders. Clearly there are strong technological pushes in US and in Asia and in other places. And as said earlier, it's important that they're there. We need a global standard. We need input from around the world. But the smart network and services is there trying to make sure that Europe is at the table, that we have a view. And also what we wish to do is try and safeguard European values, which sounds a very strange thing to be talking about in a research program. But the issue here is things like security and privacy, they are not orthogonal to the technology. You need the hooks, you need the ability in the technology to actually support these concepts of personal freedom and personal privacy. And that's what we wish to do. Maybe some of these aspects are a little bit more pushed or driven from a European point of view. And we want to make sure that the overall global 6G technology supports those concepts. And clearly, it's not just about developing the technology, it will also be about deploying and applying the technology. So how can we actually gain advantage in terms of green transition, low carbon footprint? How can we actually make industry more competitive? All of those are also within the scope of the program. So as I pointed out, there is a huge scope in this research program. We've got nearly a decade to be working on this. What I wanted to do was I wanted to give one slide, not that this is an exhaustive list, but it gives perhaps some idea of the sort of scope of what we're trying to do here. And it goes all the way from the physical layer, all the way right up to the application service layer. And it's also, in terms of technology, bringing in many new key areas, things like AI, things like cloud, IoT, things that we've perhaps considered separate in 5G and in the past, whereas now we wish to bring all of these things into the mix to make sure that we develop a technology which is encompassing these key issues so we can provide the services of tomorrow. So the Smart Network and Services program has started. We are looking around somewhere around 900 million euros of public funding for research projects. We are expecting the industry to at least invest the same amount. So overall, 1.8 billion euros will be invested in these projects at least. And the first set of project proposals has been submitted and is now being evaluated. We would expect those projects to be starting end of this year, beginning of next year. So really with that, I would like to sort of finish my talk, but maybe I can make a call for participation. 6G cannot be created by a single organization or indeed a single region. It needs a global effort. We welcome cooperation, both in terms of as a 6GIA, but also within Smart Networks and Services JU. And I'd like to make this an open invitation for people to get involved. The website is there. We would welcome people getting involved at whichever level they choose to. So either becoming a member of the 6GIA, if you have a European entity there, or indeed becoming part of the Smart Network and Services projects or portfolio, or indeed collaborating across peer entities. And with that, thank you very much. I will hand it back to Didier.
Okay, many thanks, Colin. Very, very clear. And now, post-COVID, hopefully, we will have also this opportunity to meet, as you propose for the cooperation and for synergies to meet face to face, hopefully. Many thanks. So I propose that we hand over directly to Mike. Yeah, exactly. Serge is posting, but don't hesitate to use the Q&A to ask questions if you have any question. Yeah. So perfect, Mike. Excellent. We start to see. Yeah, excellent. Okay, up to you, Mike. Thanks, and thanks, Colin. Yeah.
Great, thank you. So good afternoon, good morning. My name is Mike Nawrocki, and I'm Managing Director of the NextG Alliance, which was launched about 18 months ago. And I'll try, it's just in a couple of slides, I'll just try to kind of summarize the goals, the composition, the vision of the NextG Alliance. So I guess a good place to always start off is kind of what are the foundational goals. And I think as we look at the NextG Alliance, there are really three goals. That kind of one of the top level goals is really the belief that 6G should be viewed as a national agenda item. And I think in some respects, 5G kind of rose this level, but very late in the process. You began, as we move toward deployment, you began to see a lot of focus on secure 5G and such. But we really see, because of the kind of the reach of 6G and the fact that so much of 6G is really about meeting societal needs, meeting policy needs, all the various markets that will be touched by 6G, it's really important to look at it at a national agenda level. The second is every region really needs to look at 6G from its own drivers, perspectives, policies, values, specific markets. So we're very much shaping the NextG Alliance to meet the North American view around this, with the goal of really collaborating with government, and of course academia is involved as well, kind of an all-in approach in terms of approaching 6G. And the final thing is that we're really, all this doesn't matter if it doesn't result in a very robust 6G marketplace. So it's very much focused on trying to create, put all the platforms in place and make all the decisions and strategies that really will lead to that level of a very successful 6G marketplace. Just want to give you a snapshot of some of the companies who are involved, to give you a sense that there are large companies, there are medium companies, there are small companies. At this founding member level, which kind of grew from about 12 companies to where we are today. The only criteria is a commitment to the North American marketplace, a presence, and of course there's some other criteria that relate to things like not being on the Department of Commerce restricted list and so on. But the basic requirement is basically a commitment to the North American region. So this is more the strategic level of the organization, and also helping to guide the advocacy with government and the outreach. There's also a contributing level and a government member level, and these are companies that are laboratories, academic institutions, other companies who choose to join this level, automobile companies, as well as more recently we've opened up the NextG Alliance to government members. So we're starting to grow that component. Now these are contributing members. They're not, obviously government's not involved in doing advocacy and lobbying and so on, but these are government agencies that are bringing in their needs and requirements into the process. In terms of the leadership of the Alliance, we've got leadership across kind of the operator environment and the supplier environment and so on, but it's also very important as we see companies like the hyperscale companies being an important solution provider as we look at 6G. Very important that we have a very balanced approach across their leadership. And in fact, they become one layer below this, and you can start looking at things like working groups. We've got 14 different members leading our working groups. So it's important that we have kind of a very diverse leadership team and membership. In terms of where we're focused as an organization and structure, the National 6G Roadmap is kind of our anchor foundational organization that's trying to integrate across all of these working groups. I won't dig into all the working groups, but I think you can see from their titles that we're not just focused on technology. We're looking at the application environment, and we're looking at things like sustainability, spectrum needs, and ultimately things that relate to everyday life. We're looking at societal and economic needs as well. So again, all this is being integrated together Each of these working groups are kind of developing their own needs, requirements, use cases, and so on. But it is being integrated together at more of a much more regional view. In terms of our approach, the first thing we basically defined were these set of audacious goals, which are really a set of collective goals that we believe everyone in the alliance, everyone in the industry, academia, government can really sign up to as being important. And then we began to kind of look across the different layers. And in terms of developing a vision and roadmap, we do not want the vision to be solely defined on technology. It's very important, it's very complex, ultimately it provides the solutions, but we took really a top-down look at this. So we looked at national imperatives, you know, what are the things around sustainability, things like digital equity and so on, the kind of the big policy issues, economic competitiveness. So we're really kind of looking, that kind of is one layer of our vision. A second layer is the applications and markets. We look at this, we look at 6G as not just being a set of, you know, killer apps per se. It's really looking at an application environment, and it's looking at innovation platform. Well, we'll continue to develop and innovate. And then of course, the technology is really kind of, you know, really a foundational level of the organization, but that should not kind of be the kind of the driver in terms of our thought process. Our concept of a roadmap, and I think this is probably where we're somewhat different from other regional approaches right now, is we really have adopted a research to realization approach. So obviously we're at the research level right now, thinking about research priorities, but you know, very quickly we're going to find ourselves thinking about the whole issue of development and manufacturing. Looking at, as we move into 2025, 2026, looking at standards leadership, not so much contributing to standards, but really the big issues around, you know, as we think about regionalization versus global interoperability, kind of those big directional issues around 6G, but then guiding us all the way to market readiness and into realization. And if you think about this roadmap, really, we should be thinking at this point about jobs of the future and how research that's being done should relate to education and jobs of the future. They won't be realized until the end of the process, but really the outcomes of each stage should feed in each other. We're not present this, but this is just meant to be a view of what was presented as part of the roadmap about 12 weeks ago. So you can see each of the working groups are developing their own view around requirements and focus areas. So this basically is what was all integrated up into the roadmap itself. And finally, I'll kind of finish on this slide. In terms of what we're trying to accomplish, you know, we're really looking for, ultimately, we're looking to take our foundational work and translate into government collaboration, creation of a robust marketplace, and really looking at 6G as having increased ownership across many different verticals, industries, as well as, you know, everyday consumer and business applications. The final point is, the question most often asked is, tell me how 6G would be different from 5G. And so this is just a snapshot of a couple of areas where we see some distinctive developments and advancements. Obviously things around, you know, the multi-centric experiences, holographic services, the role of AI, the use of higher frequencies, the focus on sustainability is a key designed-in factor, and then from an application standpoint, to transform quality of life. So that gives you a snapshot of the organization, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Many thanks, Mike. Very, very interesting presentation too. Thanks a lot. So I'm just checking in between on my side. I don't see Serge. I don't see question for the time being. So just a reminder, if you have specific question to the panelists, don't hesitate to use the Q&A. I propose that we move to the second part, and that we start with Alexandros from European perspective. So looking more at technical challenges. Then we will, thanks, Alex. And then we will have Alex Sprintson also addressing from the US perspective the RINGS project. Please, Alex.
Thank you very much, Didier. So we are going now to have a closer look in what we call in Europe the work program for smart networks and services. So have a closer look at the technical topics and how we have organized this and which are these technical topics that we plan to investigate. Okay, so picking up from where Colin left some main points, the SNS framework is a continuation from the 5G PPP. So in the 5G PPP, the focus was mainly on developing the 5G technology and slicing the NR and the SBA and all these nice stuff that we know quite well right now. However, the SNS now has moved on into a new era where we are not focusing only on the increased network performance. It's also about the services, but also serving EU policies like the Green Deal or the Cyber Security Toolbox, addressing KVIs because the impact of the 6G networks to society has to be clear and with tangible results. Of course, there are some issues like strengthening Europe's position in the 6G technology, stimulate the new business ecosystem. So what I'm trying to say is that this is a fairly more complex problem that we are trying to solve. It's not a pure technical issue. To do this, we have identified for the first phase of the SNS, just a parenthesis to say that in the SNS, we plan for 3 distinct phases, 2 years each phase. So for the first phase, we have identified the need to examine at the same time both an evolutionary path, following what 5G advance is doing and how they are progressing. Because to be realistic, nobody's expecting that 6G will start from scratch. I mean, there's going to be some link to the 5G technology. So that's the one path. And the second path is the revolutionary path where new, let's call them radical technologies that are looking very promising right now, and they have the potential to form the backbone of the 6G networks will be investigated. Now, what you see here in the slide is that the 6G networks are expected to integrate a number of orthogonal technologies, orthogonal in the past technologies like IoT, AI, machine learning, high-performance computing, and cybersecurity. So these are the key enablers that will help us realize the 6G networks. For the first phase of the SNS work program, it is indeed, as Colin said, that we are, the first phase has been complete, the proposals have been submitted, and we are targeting to have something around 34 to 38 projects. So we have the 2 paths. The blue column here is about the evolutionary path, and the purple here is the revolutionary path. We have 4 streams. In the first stream, where we expect to have 7 projects, this is about the smart communication components following the 5G midterm evolution system. The impact here is on having, the target here is to have an impact in standardization activities that will take place during the next couple of years. And at the same time, although we don't have 6G platforms already available, we have fairly advanced 5G platforms in Europe. So this can be used to set up large-scale trials, engage verticals, and try to create the business ecosystem, because this is indeed a challenge. I mean, to have the verticals really engaged and using the capabilities of 5G, 5G advanced, and 6G networks. On the evolutionary path, we have the stream B, which will have something like 19 projects. This is where the key part of the high-tech, fully futuristic research which is going to take place. And at the same time, we have allocated budget for a flagship project where we are expecting to see a large project around 25 million euros, where many companies will form the European vision. And we also have what we call the stream C. Stream C is again 3 to 5 projects, and this is mainly to set up the experimental infrastructures that will be 6G experimental infrastructure. And these are going to be used in later phases when they are going to be ready to support the 6G defining services like holographic communication, e-twinning, etc. Also, we have 2 projects for coordination and support. I think what is relevant for today's presentation is that one of these 2 CSAs is about international collaboration, because we believe indeed that the 6G is something that has a global impact, and it needs the mobilization not only of one region or with all the players from the industry, academia, SME, etc., but it needs a collaboration at global level so that we have impactful solutions. This is the roadmap, which is fairly complex. I will not take too much of your time. Simply to say that this is the dark blue is the evolutionary path. The light green is the revolutionary path. They have different phases, and you see that they are merged at the end to provide the full 6G system. This nice purple color here is about the development of the 6G platforms and infrastructure to support the large-scale trials that are going to be developed at this point here. The starting point is what we have already by the 5GPP program, enhanced by a number of solutions developed in other initiatives in Europe, including AI and ML, open solutions, IoT solutions, etc. During these phases, we have some milestones on delivering some specific results at big events. And also, what we plan to do, and I think it's quite important, the SMS is not about the connectivity, as I said before. There are several other partnerships in Europe dealing, for example, with microelectronics or with optical communication or with security or even with automated driving. And we plan to have very tight coordination and discussion with these other partnerships so that we can achieve the best results for Europe. Having a quick look at Stream A, just a reminder, this is the evolutionary path, simply to give you a glimpse on what we plan to do. We have projects that will deal with the green radio technology, so focusing on the radio part of the network and how this can be energy efficient. The second topic is related to coverage, how to increase the coverage, including satellite communication, for example. We have projects dealing with further development in the optical networking part of the network for the evolved architecture of the advanced 5G pre-6G systems, the computing evolution for the edge, trust, security, reliability of the networks, and orchestration. And 50% of our activities are going to be in Stream B, where Stream B has to be further organized into different strands. There is one strand about the system architecture, how we can further evolve both the core and the RAN part of the network and how this can work together to achieve a number of goals, like, for example, energy efficiency. Then we have strand 2, which is what is typically expected for a next generation project, mainly focusing on the wireless part of the network, the 6G radio part of the network. Then we have a strand dealing about components and infrastructure. This includes optical communication, this includes non-terrestrial networks, high altitude communication platforms, drones, also IoT, projects related to IoT, etc. So this is, as I said, about devices and infrastructure. And the fourth strand is about security and the orchestration and management of the end-to-end architecture and the deployment of the new services. All this will provide a number of technologies that are going to be taken into consideration by the flagship project, which is called the holistic system. This holistic system not only will take into consideration the key technologies and how this can be integrated together, but also will provide a number of new KPIs and key value indications. So indicators related to the actual usage of the services by the citizens or the end users, no matter if they are industry or simple users. And we have a structure where we have also a number of working groups dealing with topics of common interest between the projects. Now, this is a really complex slide. This is simply, I mean, the slides will be available after the event. It's view for you to have a glimpse on the different parts of the networks, to have a summarized version of what are the topics that we plan and we are expect to see in the first phase of the SMS program. And with this, I think that I have completed this presentation and we can address any questions you may have later on.
Many thanks. Many thanks, Alex. Well done too. Very interesting and very comprehensive. We know the challenge to cover for this program and project in a so short timing, but thanks. It was very understanding, very interesting. I'm turning to Alex for the presentation. Yeah, on the rings now. So I still don't see a question raised. Don't hesitate to. If you have any question that we can take, let's say, in the dedicated session. Thanks, Alex. Up to you now for rings.
Thank you so much. You can hear me okay, right? So just a sound check?
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so my name is Alex Sprintson, and I will be representing National Science Foundation, and we'll be talking about our new program that just was launched last year, Resilient and Intelligent NextG Systems, which was done in collaboration with 9 industry partners and 2 other US government agencies. So first of all, I want to acknowledge my colleagues that it was a kind of RINGS was a team effort with many people across many different directorates of NSF, and that everybody contributed kind of roughly equally to success of this program. So just before I start, I'm just looking a little bit in the past and see like what advances our researchers, NSF-sponsored researchers, contributed to 5G and beyond. And we can point to 4 different things. One of, for example, 3-tier CBRS spectrum sharing. Definitely our researchers pioneered millimeter wave spectrum or advocated for using millimeter wave spectrum for 5G. We have extensive research of 5G network architectures and also advances in massive MIMO. So not everything was done by NSF researchers. Was a lot of collaboration with industry. However, we're kind of proud that some of our researchers have contributed to technologies that we have today. So it's kind of similar what we expect. So hopefully like 5 years from now, we can say like what our researchers had done for 6G, and it's really kind of what's guiding us, right? We're kind of planting those seeds, and we hope that innovation developed by our PIs will result in will make an impact on this NextG technologies. So our investment in wireless is beyond 6G. For example, we're looking also at advanced Wi-Fi networks. We're looking for new spectrum bands. We're also looking for advanced wire applications of wireless technologies, for example, for sensing and for imaging. And also issue of spectrum, we kind of focusing on this heavily at NSF. We really want to arrive to kind of viable spectrum sharing solutions through novel technologies. And we have our kind of initiatives to advance spectrum innovations to the next century. So again, our investment on advanced wireless, it's roughly $100 million across many different directorates across NSF. We're doing it in partnerships with our colleagues in Department of Defense, industry partners. For example, we have this partnerships with Intel on using machine learning for wireless networks. We're investing in testing infrastructure. I think it was a separate topic for networking channel about our platforms for advanced wireless research. So we currently have 4 platforms running, and they're doing very interesting research or enabling very interesting research. For example, in ORAN and all kind of different technologies, like including millimeter wave. And it will provide our researchers capabilities to test their technologies in kind of city scale kind of environments and kind of go beyond simulations and basically create those test beds, kind of demonstrated in real test beds, and also creating some kind of data sets that researcher can use, because it's kind of will really enable research groups that might not have access to those capabilities. And we also launched recently a National Center for Wireless Spectrum Research, out of Notre Dame. It's called Spectrum X. They're also doing very fascinating research and coordination and driving research in spectrum across many different institutions in US. So what we envision for NextG is kind of using different building blocks. It's not inclusive, but just some major building blocks that we think will be present in NextG. So of course, artificial intelligence is expected to kind of play a major role in addition to current engineering models. And of course, we're still kind of trying to see where artificial intelligence can help. And we definitely see some different promising areas. Exploring different bands in the electromagnetic spectrum, as I mentioned, it's a priority area. and also increasing spectrum efficiency on existing spectrum. Resilience and security is definitely a topic, and as we'll see, like it's a major topic for RINGS program. And we also see a lot of switch kind of from hardware based to software heavy networks, and kind of we see the strength in softwareization and using software defined networks. And we expect it to be the case for NextG, including 6G. As I mentioned before, novel uses of wireless, including for sensing, and also a lot of interest recently with non-terrestrial, some people call it extraterrestrial networks, that heavy use of satellites and to kind of enable access for areas which are underserved. Okay, so we have a lot of international collaboration, including, for example, what is related to NextG with Finland, with France, and we hope like it will be much better kind of ties with Europe, but we're working on this, for example, in NextGI Atlantic program, and we have opportunities for us researchers to visit Europe. Again, as I mentioned, our heavy focus on infrastructure. So, for example, we have Chameleon and Cloud Lab, very successful infrastructures that enables kind of our researchers to using cloud, who are doing cloud research to do experiments on those cloud platforms. Again, platform for advanced wireless and also Fabric. We also have some capabilities for our researcher to access public and cloud through Cloud Bank and also private cloud. As I mentioned before, our initiatives on spectrum, very, very interesting new developments. So we have new solicitation for national radio dynamic zone that enable people to transmit and kind of share spectrum dynamically without interfering with outside users. I encourage everybody to look on this solicitation, and it will be kind of very interesting testbed that will enable people to kind of really test their kind of capabilities and to kind of share a spectrum dynamically without affecting sensitive equipment, for example, used in astronomy and other like weather satellites and other geosciences applications. And they're also working on workforce development and some other integrative activities. So going back to RINGS program, so we started in thinking why NextG will be a disruptor. What are main issues that NextG will address? And first of all, is transition to machine-to-machine communication from traditional uses of wireless. Also, another challenge is connecting billions of IoT devices. And kind of if you think about securities, there are definitely a lot of challenges how to secure all this ecosystem. Definitely, we see that new players and stakeholders coming to NextG, for example, in transportation, was mentioned before. So how we engage them, how we provide them like network slices that are secure and provide quality of service guarantees, like, for example, low latency that they expect from this. Again, we see those trends to be more software driven, more virtualization, more use of edge cloud. We also see a lot of flexibility in system design instead of kind of using systems that design for a range of frequencies instead of just specific frequencies, and also a lot of plug and play applications that will play an important role. We also see that a lot of reliance on cellular infrastructure for different kind of life-saving applications. For example, like telemedicine and so forth. So we really kind of want to focus on security and resiliency as a primary consideration for RINGS, just because of this, right? If you have like applications in transportation on safety, public safety or defense, we want those networks to be reliable. So connectivity just not enough. We want them to have a really, really high degree of reliability and security. And also, like, we expect them to be like very large scale consumer base, much more than we have even today, that kind of go beyond cellular phones and go to IoT and so forth. And also many exciting applications, AR, VR, all this metaverse, video analytics, and so forth. Okay, and again, like when we thought about the rings programs, that we saw like how to design a program in which resilience will be primary considerations. So it's high tolerance to attacks, failures, service disruptions, and so forth, right? And those systems tend to be very, very complicated. They rely on cloud, edge cloud, include like a lot of rely on infrastructures that dispersed around the country, and how to protect all of this and provide like reliable service. This is what we challenged our principal investigators to think about. And this is basically kind of was first things that we thought about this. So just kind of talking a little bit more specific about this program. So we have 9 industry partners shown here. So it's kind of from people from companies that focusing kind of traditionally on wireless, like such as Qualcomm, Nokia, again, like we have people from Nokia on this panel, Intel, and we have people who are working more on cloud type solutions, Microsoft and Google, and we have IBM, so Ericsson and Apple. So it's basically a very, very diverse set of companies that looking on different parts of this NextG ecosystems, and we brought them all together with our government partners, NIST, National Institute of Standards, and Department of Defense through Office of Undersecretary of Defense. So the total investment was around $40 million, and it's primarily NSF, large part, but we have like significant contribution from our partners, including DoD. And so kind of the way the program was structured, we have different, we define different research vectors that are divided in 2 groups. Group A was more focused on resiliency and security. So you can see, like, for example, one of the vectors was full stack security, then intelligent adaptability of the system, autonomy, and we also left it open so any other resiliency components people can submit. This group B included research vectors more focused on technologies. For example, we kind of challenged our community to think about new radio approaches from megahertz to terahertz, new waveform, new coding signal processing solutions, large-scale MIMO and RF. Second research vector was about spectrum utilization technology. Then kind of another opportunity was to think about device to edge to cloud continuum, how, like, manage data across all those different clouds, edge cloud to traditional cloud, and also like kind of some data can be stored on the device. And last research vector was focusing more on applications. So we call it merging digital and physical worlds. And again, it's talking kind of PIs can focus on virtual reality and augmented reality. So unique feature of this program, since we focused on resiliency as a primary consideration, so PIs have to choose at least one research vector for group A and another kind of research vector from group B. So they cannot just focus on traditional technologies that we normally fund in group B. They need to tie it to resiliency or security. So again, we received, so the kind of program was announced like probably like year from like back a year ago, and we have submission deadline in summer. So we received like more than 200 proposals, and we have 2-step review process in which we have a regular NSF review process, and then we shared roughly 75 proposals that was ranked competitive or above to industry partners. And then we, each industry partners had an opportunity to rank those proposals and also provide feedback. And then we came together and selected 37 proposals based on this. So it's very new way of reviewing. So actually NSF never had a program with so many partners participating. We had normally a program with 1 or 2 partners, but in this case it's 9 industry and 2 other government partners. So we tried to think holistically and integrate input from different partners, and we came up with our proposal selections. So you can see kind of rough distribution between different topics. We call them bins. And kind of, again, it was based on preferences of, first of all, intellectual merit and impact, traditional NSF review criteria, and also applicability to rings or alignment with the rings vision. And we're looking forward now with those proposals being launched. Actually, the proposal started May 1st, and we look forward for kickoff meeting with industry. Again, the goal of this program to encourage this basic fundamental research, primarily focusing on academia, but kind of challenging our APIs to think about like those technologies that will impact NextG, including 6G, that kind of some of those technologies can be adopted for standards. That definitely will be the kind of holy grail of success of this program. So organization like Mike's and kind of can adopt some of the technologies we develop in nets. And the unique also aspect for our principal investigators, that not only they receiving funds as part of this program, but they have an opportunity to collaborate closely with our partners, right? So they have like kind of through virtual organizations that we also will fund. We will tie them to partners, so it will enable fast transition of technology, because it's also enable our partners to have visibility what top academic teams selected here are doing, and also enable our kind of principal investigators to get access to capabilities or data sets or test beds available through partners. So this is all. So back to you, Didier.
Thanks, many thanks also, Alex. Extremely interesting. So clearly, as expected, let's say, with such a outstanding panelist, the content was very and is very interesting. So many thanks to you for let's say your presentation, and it's crystal clear. So I check. I don't see so far a specific question. There is. Okay, so we have one question, in fact. So softwareization of networks is really a strong trend nowadays. From our own experience, keeping one computer running for weeks without hooking up is a challenge. So in global, highly dynamic wireless network, we expect to see billions of computers being real virtual. How to ensure scalability, stability in highly dynamic environment with existing software architecture? So very good question from Ari. Thanks for this. I don't know, Alex, does one of you want to take this one? And clearly with this question of it will really further expand, we know, in terms of in connection to the number of connected devices and a question of overall volume of traffic. You see the question also directly, I think, the panelist. So which, Alex, one of you want to start? Yeah, I cannot hear you.
You can just start. Yeah,
please.
It's the discussion. Yeah, it's a really important problem. Again, we thought about this, like, how to secure billions of devices, right? So this is also a very, very important topic because those devices are very lightweight. So we kind of envision softwareization primarily in the core, but we wanted to propagate towards wireless environment. We leverage advances in softwareization in traditional networks, like, for example, lesson learned with OpenFlow or P4 type of approaches. And we definitely see that effort actually funded by our sister agency, DARPA. It's called ITER, and some other efforts that people kind of building software-defined networks for NextG. They're primarily focusing on core networks for softwareization of wireless, like, and go like deeper into wireless stack is still an open issue. Yeah, again, like, it's our APIs are looking into this. I don't think we have some kind of like a quick solution to all of this, right? But definitely, if you're looking at P4 and kind of way to define those behaviors in a way that, kind of verifiable in the sense, like, it provides softwareization, definitely provides a lot of flexibility, but there is also an overhead. I don't think we will go like as far as kind of to end devices, but it's also possible, right? But it's definitely allows us like to being flexible and kind of an agile. So I will let my colleagues to kind of
thanks, Alex. Thanks, Alex. Just a point that there was recently a dedicated webinar on P4, in fact. So in case you, for the colleagues, in case you miss it, you can replay it on the YouTube channel, Yeah. I don't know, Alex, if you want to add something. Yeah.
Yes, just to say that indeed what Ari is saying is a very valid point. It's an open topic for research because we see, we are witnessing that softwareization is the trend forward in the core and also sometimes in the run. Also, we are going to witness a tighter integration of the services with the whole network, but trusting these solutions, this virtualization, softwareization, and the dynamicity of deploying the services and have them running, introducing a level of trustability from the operators and the service providers, it takes some doing. So in the SNS, we have several strands dealing exactly with this problem. So it's an open research, it's an open research topic, indeed.
Okay, thanks to both of you, Alex. There is another question, but I'm also keeping an eye on the watch. So I'd like to ask you a question, Colin and Mike, and also both of you, Alex, with respect to the synergies and how can we clearly we see fantastic program and project from both sides of the Atlantic. So we know that there are existing channels in order to make, let's say, cooperation, but at a higher level, globally between the program, how do you foresee, Alex, for instance, you mentioned a coordination support action that is targeted in the first phase. I understand also that there may be potentially a specific cooperation project, more potentially either technical or coordinated like. We know in 5G, there was this 5G, global 5G event that were also enabling a very good synchronization between the different regions. So if I turn first to Colin, and then I will turn also to Mike to understand what is wished, what is possibly targeted from both sides, please.
Yeah, thank you, Didier. As I tried to say when I was presenting, we see global collaboration as absolutely vital if we're going to make a global standard. So we already have various MOUs signed with various parts of the world, and we'll be very keen to continue the good cooperation we've had with North America on 5G. In the 5G domain, we have been mainly working with 5G Americas up till now, but we are about to be talking with NextG Alliance this week, I believe, on Friday, to discuss what possible collaboration we can do there. In terms of direct research collaboration, I feel we have a slightly different model in North America and Europe. Europe tends to be multi-party collaboration. I get the feeling some of the US models for collaborative research projects might be somewhat more limited in terms of how many partners there are. So we need to see what fits, but we are certainly open. I mean, as I think, you know, coming from Empower, you are more than aware, we have had joint research projects historically with many parts of the world: China, Korea, Japan, Taiwan, North America, China. You know, we haven't just talked about it, we've actually done that in the past, and we'll be looking to do that in the future as well.
Yeah, thanks, Colin. Clear. Mike, from your side, from your US side.
Well, obviously, collaboration and cooperation are really important, and I think, you know, the ultimate example of collaboration is really standards, right? But that's, from an intense effort, that's probably 4 years away from a 6G perspective. So what do we do now in the interim? I think an important factor really, and we've heard a lot of discussion about roadmaps and vision this morning, this afternoon. It's important that you have an initial foundation. So you understand what the drivers are within that specific region, the vertical markets, you know, the public policies, the societal drivers, and some of these differ. And so the point is that, you know, multiple regions collaborating have to have that foundation in place. You have to have a roadmap in place and so on to really understand in terms of your ultimate decision on what you're collaborating around, is that of high value to both partners, or do you have mutual benefits? So I think we're really at that point as we hear about the different regional perspectives. I think each region now kind of has its basic foundation, and I think you'll be seeing much more in the future around cooperation.
Okay, thanks, Mike. So very clear also from both sides. We will see for sure increase of cooperation. Alex, you want to bring a point, and then I will. I see that one of the questions has been answered from your side with respect to ring solicitation, and then I will pass the hand back to Serge. Fdida. Please, Alex, you raise the hand, please.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to comment on this different types of kind of different models research in US and EU. So definitely NSF historically was kind of focusing on relatively small projects, right? So because it's just our community works this way, we want to, enable grassroots research so people can come with us with best ideas. And we're definitely aware that big projects require a lot of overhead, but they also have advantages. So we're also looking on that model as well. So for example, Spectrum X project that I mentioned is a big center. It includes many institutions. So we also have centers, and we funded like probably 10, 15 centers on artificial intelligence. And it's kind of large projects that kind of collaborate. And Power Projects is also, you can think about as a huge center for testbeds. We actually, when we started Rings, we thought about kind of pros and cons of creating a center or versus like funding a large number of small kind of projects. And we thought like in the beginning, we just wanted to go with kind of, for us, it's medium-sized projects with large number of medium-sized projects, just to make sure that we planting those seeds, not kind of in different types of technologies, and the PI can think freely, without having to like huge report burden, like, to coordination burden, and they can kind of innovate in such way. And we can kind of actually think about, somebody asked about future of Rings. And we cannot share anything, like we don't have anything to share with the community at this point. Hopefully it will continue, but it also depends on our partners and other factors, kind of decision makers. But it's possible that we can go central scale, right, the next time, right? So it just depends. We kind of very adaptive to, and we want to see success of. Currently, we want to see success of projects that we just funded, and we want to get like this to grow and then decide. Yes, thanks.
Okay, many thanks. So again, very, very great. I'd like to thank all of you, all the panelists. So Colin, Mike, Alex, and Alex. It's excellent, and I think it's just a starting point. That's just a starting point of something really big that we will achieve. So thanks for this. Just a last point from my side before I hand over to Serge is clearly Empower. We achieve very, very good cooperation and interaction, and we know the networking channel will continue. For information, there will be the big conference organized in Europe, EU CNC and 6G Summit 2022. So it will be organized in France, in Grenoble, beginning of June. And there will be a dedicated Empower workshop where we will have both European and US colleagues addressing, let's say, technical development. And several of us will be also participating to this workshop. So I really encourage, of course, many further interaction on 6G in the future. So thanks again. Serge, I give you the hand back. I think you will have the concluding word. Thanks.
Yes, first of all, thanks a lot, Didier. Gratitude to the speakers. Again, I think it was very informative and a lot of open questions, especially with respect to matching funding and the way forward intensive cooperation. But as you said, we are quite practical. I'm not going to announce the next program, which usually happened 2 weeks after the current one, because this is a well-deserved summer break for the networking channel, but also for yourself. And so we give you a rendezvous for the fall semester of the networking channel, which will start in September the 14th, up to December 7th. This will be our semester, and we ask you to stay tuned, register to the networking channel, and take good care of you. Enjoy the summer, and see you again on September. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye, everyone.